Amy at EuroluxHome.com. Welcome back to our YouTube channel. If you enjoy learning about antiques and European history, please remember to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and maybe even share it with a friend who might also enjoy learning about European antiques. So often customers tell me that they are looking for an antique king-size bed. And I always have to respond, well, that's going to be a problem because kings and queens didn't actually sleep together. The size king size that we know today was actually developed in the 1950s. And so I thought it would be really interesting to share with you the history of the bed that we sleep in every night. Behind me is our most popular bed. It's an antique-inspired Victorian king bed with gorgeous flame mahogany veneers over solid mahogany. It's really an impressive and beautiful bed, and so I thought it would make a great backdrop for this video today. So as I mentioned, kings and queens didn't sleep together. They had their own rooms, and there were three main reasons for that. The first is that most royal marriages were not love stories. Instead, they were political alliances. Sometimes the king and queen didn't even speak the same language, and so it makes sense that they just came together to do their duty and make an heir, but they mostly slept apart in their own spheres. The second reason is it was thought that it was for the safety of the succession of the line, that if there was danger in the palace or the castle, that the king and the queen could be separately protected in case of an attack. The third reason is for status. It was thought that if, with the castle being so large, there was room for each of the king and queen to have their own sphere of influence, their own rooms. And so, of course, each of them would have great big, ornate, beautiful bed. So, we did have larger size beds back in antique times, but they weren't standardized in the size of a king size that we know today. Supposedly, there is a royal bed that would sleep 15 people that's in the Victoria and Albert Museum that you can visit in England today. I'm sure very impressive. But if we look back into history, all the way back to the Egyptians and the Romans, the bed, what was used as a bed, was really tied to the person's wealth and status. So the leaders, the rulers had big ornate beds, but the common people generally slept on the ground, sometimes huddled together for warmth, and eventually the practice of taking a big sack and stuffing it with hay was developed, and to sleep on this hay sack. And it's very interesting if you've ever heard the term, I'm really tired, I think I'm gonna hit the hay. That's where it comes from, is hitting your hay sack, your mattress that you used. I don't think very comfortable, but sure beats sleeping on the ground, I guess. So these straw mattresses is what was used mostly by the common man, and most of the less fortunate people slept together communally. But throughout time, because the rulers, the kings and the queens slept separately, there was this idea of that married couples sleeping separately was an indication of status or wealth. So throughout the Renaissance, all the way through the 18th century, you did see couples sleeping separately, and especially in the aristocracy or the ruling class. And it was very popular to have large four-poster canopy beds. So you can sometimes find large antique four-poster canopy beds, but they are quite hard to find, antique ones. Now, By the 19th century, we have the rise of the Industrial Revolution, and that is when beds begin to be standardized. And it makes sense if you're manufacturing, you want to come up with standard sizes. And that's when the sizes of twin and full size, sometimes called doubles, were developed. And that's pretty much what everyone slept in, most common people, in the full size or for a married couple or a twin size. And sometimes, again, married couples slept apart, especially with the Victorian era. So when Victoria came to the throne in the early 19th century, the Victorians, it was part of their culture to place a great focus on modesty and propriety. And so it was thought that even though you were a married couple, it really was more modest to sleep separately and then just come together for that creating of the heir. So another reason, besides for the status of sleeping separately, the Victorians were concerned about your health, and they thought that it was actually more modern and better for your health for married couples to sleep separately. It was thought that the weaker person in the marriage, that their life force would be drained by the stronger person. And if you've ever had to share a bed with someone that snores, I think you probably have felt that idea that your life force could be drained by someone that's snoring very loudly. Good thing for CPAP machines, right? So that was one of the reasons that the Victorians did sleep separately. Now, after we come across World War II, we have a great prosperity that has come into culture, especially in the US. And this is now what's called the baby boomer generation. So post-World War II, you have lots of GIs returning from the war, and you have the suburbanization of the US with people moving out into the suburbs, and it's an economic boom which caused a housing boom. So lots of houses were being built much bigger than they had been before, and all of these GIs created lots of babies, and they needed bigger beds to create those babies in. And so in the 1950s is when we actually have the standardization of the king-size bed as we know it today, and the queen-size bed as well. And so that is when the king-size bed really took off, was in 1950s in the US. It was also thought that it had become sort of old-fashioned, this idea of married couples sleeping separately. And so with the rise of the standardized king and queen-size beds, we do see married couples coming back together and sleeping jointly again. If I can answer any questions for you about king-size beds, the history, or perhaps our gorgeous Victorian king-size bed, please let me know in the comments below. Remember to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and maybe even share it with a friend who might also enjoy learning about European antiques. See you next time!